God is removing the family that has been draining you. They called it family, but they treated you like a servant. You paid bills that were not yours. You fixed problems you did not create. You carried responsibilities that belonged to grown people. When they needed help, they expected an immediate answer. When you needed rest, they called you selfish. They did not appreciate your love. They turned it into an obligation. They believed you would always surrender. One complaint was enough to make you feel guilty. One crisis was enough to bring you running back. That control has now been broken. God has cut off the access they abused. Their calls are going unanswered. Their demands are meeting closed doors. The hands that constantly reached into your life are returning empty. If God is freeing you from the burden of carrying an entire family, write Amen in the comments. Let it declare that guilt will never enslave you again. Your absence is exposing everything your sacrifice kept hidden. Without your money, labor, protection, and constant intervention, their comfort is collapsing. Every burden they forced onto you is returning to them. They are discovering how hard life becomes when the person they treated like a slave is no longer available. You did not destroy this family. You simply stopped destroying yourself to hold it together. Now they are heading toward rock bottom, and God is leading you toward freedom. Number 1. A ruthless family turned your love into an obligation. This family no longer saw your kindness as a gift. They treated it like a duty, something you were required to perform. Your love became available on demand. Your generosity was no longer appreciated. It was claimed. When someone could not pay a bill, they turned to you. When the home became disorderly, you restored it. When conflict broke out, you brought peace. You helped because you believed family should protect one another. You never imagined your help would give them permission to stop helping themselves. At first, they asked for favors. Later, they expected them. Eventually, they acted as if you owed them everything. They stopped asking whether you were tired. They did not consider whether you had enough money. Your work, plans, and need for rest did not matter. If they needed something, you were expected to become available. Multiple family members depended on one person, you. One needed financial help. Another needed transportation. Someone wanted you to prepare a meal. Another left a mess for you to clean. When an argument began, they expected you to settle it. Each demand looked small by itself. Together, they consumed your days and exhausted your mind. You could finish one responsibility and immediately hear someone calling your name. There was always another problem waiting. Even when you sat down, you could not fully rest. Your thoughts remained occupied by what someone else needed. Your home stopped feeling like a place of peace. It became the place where everyone brought the responsibilities they did not want to carry. These family members were capable of contributing. They could work, plan, clean, and make responsible decisions. Yet many of them refused. Your sacrifice made their lives easier. They learned how to pressure you. They delayed until a problem became urgent. They complained until you felt guilty. They created enough confusion to make you step in. Then they stood back while you handled everything. They took your money, effort, time, attention, and peace. Then they walked away. They left you with the consequences. You were expected to restore order after they had already taken what they wanted. You could return home after a long day and find family members relaxing. More work would still be waiting for you. They saw the exhaustion in your face. They heard the strain in your voice. Yet they did not offer relief. When you asked for help, a simple request became an argument. You had to explain why you were tired. You had to defend your need for rest. Sometimes you nearly had to beg. These were the same people who benefited from your labor, yet they resisted, carrying even one small responsibility. Their entitlement had grown deep. They believed your strength existed for their convenience. Your reliability excused their lack of effort. Your caring heart became a place to deposit every burden they did not want. They did not consider the cost because they were not the ones paying it. You paid with lost sleep. You paid with postponed plans. You spent money that could have protected your future. You cried in private after everyone else received what they wanted. Still, they behaved as if you had done nothing extraordinary. There was little gratitude. There was no meaningful relief. They showed no desire to return the care you had given them. They accepted one sacrifice. Then they prepared another demand. This was not equal love. The entire family structure depended on one person carrying nearly everything. Everyone else enjoyed the benefits. You were not treated like someone precious. You were treated like the person assigned to keep everybody comfortable. They believed your love belonged to them. They believed your service had no limit. You were giving them everything, yet they were preparing to leave you with nothing but crumbs. Number 2. They gave you crumbs while taking everything you had. You gave this family more than occasional help. You gave them access to nearly every part of your life. Your money covered their shortages. Your time solved their emergencies. Your home became a place where they could arrive whenever they needed comfort. Your heart remained open even after they had disappointed you. What did they give back? Crumbs. When you needed support, they were suddenly unavailable. When you were exhausted, they had somewhere else to be. When you needed someone to listen, the conversation quickly returned to their problems. They expected complete devotion from you, yet they offered the smallest effort in return. You may have asked for one simple favor. Nothing costly. Nothing difficult. Still, they acted inconvenienced. They sighed. They delayed. They made you feel guilty for asking. Sometimes they promised us to help but never arrived. You learned that depending on them often created more disappointment than handling everything alone. That imbalance wounded you, not because you kept a record of every favor. You never needed repayment for every act of kindness. You only wanted evidence that your well-being mattered to them, but their concern rarely appeared when you needed it most. Even your accomplishments revealed the truth. When something good happened for you, their smiles felt forced. They could enjoy the benefits of your success. Yet, they struggled to celebrate the person who created it. Some became quiet. Others changed the subject. A few found reasons to criticize what should have been a joyful moment. Your blessings made them comfortable, but they also made them jealous. They liked what your hard work provided. They liked entering your home. They liked receiving your help. They liked knowing you had enough to rescue them. But they did not always like seeing you prosper. Your progress reminded them of the effort they had refused to make. If you have given people everything while receiving only crumbs, write 77 in the comments. Let it declare that you will no longer confuse being needed with being loved. You are not asking for too much when you expect care to move in both directions. Love should not leave one person full while the other remains empty. Family should not celebrate what you provide while ignoring what their dependence is doing to you. They became possessive over things that did not belong to them. If you helped one family member, another wanted the same amount or more. Instead of appreciating your generosity, they compared what everyone received. They argued over your money, time, and attention as if your blessings were family property. Nothing was ever enough. You could solve one problem and another demand appeared. You could give them your final dollar, and they would still ask what else you could do. They did not stop when you became tired. They stopped only when there was nothing more available at that moment. Then they waited for you to recover, so they could return. This is why you felt depleted, even when no single request seemed enormous. They were taking from every direction. One person consumed your money. Another consumed your time. Someone else disturbed your peace. Together, they left you with an empty basket while carrying away the results of your labor. God did not bless your hands, so an ungrateful family could keep them permanently empty. What you built with discipline was not meant to reward people who refused to contribute. Your generosity was sacred. They treated it as an unlimited supply. They received the whole bakery and left you crumbs on the floor. Now you are beginning to understand that refusing those crumbs is not selfish. It is the first sign that you finally recognize your worth. Number 3, they gaslit you every time you tried to speak. The family did not want to hear how much they were hurting you. Listening would have required them to change. So they attacked your reaction instead. When you said you were exhausted, they called you dramatic. When you asked for help, they accused you of complaining. When you said their demands were unfair, they told you to calm down. The conversation never remained focused on their behavior. They always redirected it toward your emotions. They wanted you to believe the problem was not what they had done. The problem was how you responded to it. You could explain yourself carefully. You could speak without raising your voice. You could choose every word with patience. It made no difference. They dismissed you before you finished speaking. Some walked away. Others laughed. A few acted confused and claimed they had no idea what you meant. They knew exactly what you meant. They had watched you carry the family for years. They saw the fatigue in your face. They noticed when you became quieter. They knew how often you sacrificed your own needs. But admitting the truth would have ended the arrangement that kept them comfortable. So they made you question yourself. You began wondering whether you were too sensitive. You asked yourself if setting a boundary was cruel. You replayed conversations in your mind. You searched for a gentler way to explain pain they had already decided not to respect. The more carefully you spoke, the more they twisted your words. If you said no, they called you selfish. If you asked for space, they said you were abandoning the family. If you mentioned everything you had done, they accused you of keeping score. Their goal was not understanding. Their goal was to make you surrender. If you are finished apologizing for protecting yourself, write 7, 7, 7 inches, the comments. Let it declare that guilt will no longer silence the truth God has placed in your heart. They knew your compassion was the easiest place to apply pressure. You did not want anyone to suffer. You did not want the family divided. You feared becoming the person everyone blamed. They used those fears to keep you serving them. After every confrontation, you were left carrying 2 burdens. You still had the responsibility they refused to handle. Now, you also carried shame for daring to speak about it. They returned to their comfort while you questioned your character. That pattern repeated until you almost stopped speaking. Silence seemed easier than another argument. Doing everything yourself felt less painful than asking people to care. You learned to hide your exhaustion because honesty only gave them another opportunity to dismiss you. But your silence never meant their treatment was acceptable. It meant you were trying to survive inside a family that punished truth. You were not overreacting. You were finally responding to years of being ignored. You were not becoming cold. You were becoming clear. You were not destroying the family. You were naming what had already been destroying you. God heard every conversation they distorted. He saw every tear you wiped away in private. He knew how often you questioned yourself after they denied what was plainly happening. Their words may have confused you for a time. They never confused God. He saw the manipulation hidden beneath their excuses, and he was not going to allow them to use your loving heart against you forever. Number 4. God saw what they were doing behind the word family. They used the word family whenever they wanted access to you. They used it when they needed money. They used it when they wanted your time. They used it when they expected you to forgive another act of disrespect. But they rarely used that word when you needed protection. To them, family meant you should never say no. It meant they could cross your boundaries without consequences. It meant you were expected to remain loyal even when their behavior became cruel. They wanted the privileges of being your family. They rejected the responsibility of treating you like someone they loved. God saw what was hiding behind that word. God saw you return home, exhausted, and still care for everyone else. God saw you open your door to people who brought disorder into your home. God saw your savings become smaller while their demands became larger. God saw you cry after everyone had received what they wanted. Nothing was hidden. They may have convinced other relatives that you were strong enough to handle everything. They may have described your sacrifice as something you enjoyed doing. That allowed them to receive without feeling ashamed. It also helped them avoid answering an uncomfortable question. Why was one person carrying nearly the entire family? God already knew the answer. You were not carrying everything because the others were helpless. You were carrying it because they had learned to take advantage of your compassion. They knew you would feel guilty if you refused. They understood that your love for the family could be used to keep you obedient. They treated your blessings like shared property. Your home became their refuge. Your income became their backup plan. Your peace became something they could disturb whenever they created another crisis. But those blessings were entrusted to you. You worked for what you had. You endured years of struggle to build stability. You made careful decisions while others acted carelessly. The comfort they enjoyed around you did not appear without sacrifice. You paid for it with discipline, patience, and many difficult days. They wanted the harvest without respecting the hands that planted it. God did not bless your life so others could empty it. Your home was never meant to become a place where disrespect lived without limits. Your money was not given to reward irresponsibility. Your loving heart was not created to become a shelter for people who refused to change. God was not angry because you helped your family. Your generosity reflected something beautiful. God was angry because they saw that beauty and decided to exploit it. They witnessed your loyalty and demanded more. They saw your exhaustion and refused to stop. They understood that you were hurting, yet they continued reaching for whatever remained. They thought your silence meant God approved. They believed the absence of immediate consequences gave them permission to continue. They confused God's patience with blindness, but heaven had been watching the entire time. God saw the private cost behind every favor. God heard the disrespect hidden beneath their requests. God knew which family members appeared only when they wanted something. God also knew who disappeared when you were the one in need. You no longer have to prove what happened. You do not need every relative to agree with you. Their refusal to acknowledge your pain does not erase what God witnessed. The word family cannot protect exploitation forever. A shared name does not make cruelty acceptable. Blood does not grant permanent access to someone's money, home, labor, or peace. God saw how they treated you. God saw what it was costing you. Now the blessings they abused are being placed behind boundaries they can no longer cross. Number 5. Their access to you is being permanently removed. The change did not begin with a loud confrontation. It began when you stopped responding the way they expected. A call came, but you did not rush to answer. A demand was made, but you did not rearrange your day. Someone created another crisis, but you refused to become the solution. For the first time, their urgency did not become your responsibility. That frightened them. They were accustomed to reaching into your life whenever they wanted something. Your time was always available. Your money became their emergency fund. Your home remained open even after they disturbed your peace. They believed their access could never expire. Now the door is closing. God is not asking you to explain yourself again. You have already described your exhaustion. You have already asked for fairness. They heard you. They simply believed you would never find the strength to act. Your boundaries are proving them wrong. You are no longer paying expenses that belong to someone else. You are not cleaning every mess. You are not stepping between family members who refuse to resolve their conflicts. Each person must now face the responsibility attached to their choices. They may call you cruel. They may accuse you of abandoning the family. But refusing to remain trapped is not abandonment. Protecting what God entrusted to you is not selfishness. If you are ready to close every door that guilt keeps reopening, write 999 inches, the comments. Let it declare that the access they abused has expired. Some family members will test your boundary. They may begin with a friendly message. Then the real request will appear. Others may create another emergency, because emergencies always brought you running back. A few may send another relative to pressure you. Remember the pattern. Their panic does not prove they have changed. It proves they can feel the loss of your service. Their sudden kindness may be an attempt to restore the arrangement that benefited them. God is creating distance for a reason. Some people may have to leave your home. Others may need to find work or another source of support. Certain relationships may become quiet because there is nothing left for them to take. That silence may feel painful at first, yet it will give you something you have not experienced in a long time: peace. You will begin to recognize how much strength their demands consumed. You will sleep without waiting for the next crisis. You will make plans without expecting an interruption. Your home will slowly become a place of safety again. Their removal is not your punishment. It is your protection. God is separating your blessings from people who treated them carelessly. The family assumed your open heart meant an open door forever. They never expected heaven to place a lock where guilt once gave them entry. Do not reopen that door because they become uncomfortable. Discomfort may be the first thing that forces them to mature. Their responsibilities belong to them. Their future cannot continue being purchased with your peace. They had years to appreciate your presence. Instead, they exploited it. Now they must learn what life feels like without unlimited access to you. God is leading you forward. The family that treated you like a servant is being left outside the life they repeatedly drained. Number 6. The burdens they put on you are returning to them. The moment you stopped carrying the family, every neglected responsibility began returning to its rightful owner. The bills did not disappear because you stepped away. The household still required work. Problems still needed solutions. Decisions still carried consequences. The difference was simple. You were no longer standing between them and the weight of their choices. They had forgotten how heavy that weight was. For years, they handed you whatever they did not want to face. If money ran short, you found the difference. If someone failed to plan, you created a solution. If conflict erupted, you restored order. Your sacrifice made their lives appear easier than they truly were. Now the protection is gone. They wake up and discover that no one has handled the problem overnight. They make calls, but cannot find another person willing to take responsibility. They wait for help that does not arrive. Every task they avoided remains exactly where they left it. The burden feels unbearable because they never developed the strength to carry it. They may blame you at first. They may say everything became difficult after you left. That part is true. Life did become more difficult for them. But not because you harmed them. It became difficult because your labor had hidden the real cost of their irresponsibility. If you believe every person must carry the consequences of their own choices, write one in the comments. Let it declare that you will never again sacrifice your peace to protect someone from a lesson God is allowing them to face. The family is beginning to understand how much you did in silence. Tasks that looked easy when you performed them now remain unfinished. Expenses they assumed would be covered now create pressure. Conflicts you once calmed continue growing because no one wants to listen or compromise. They search for another person to replace you. Yet replacement is not easy. Other people recognize the demands more quickly. They establish limits. They refuse to provide money. They will not surrender every hour of their day to keep this family comfortable. The family expected another rescuer. Instead, they found closed hands. This is where they begin hitting rock bottom. The comfort disappears first. Then the excuses stop working. They can no longer point at you and claim you are responsible for everything. Each person must look at what has been neglected and decide whether to carry it or let it collapse. The consequences are not arriving all at once. They are building through ordinary days. One unresolved problem connects to another. One missed responsibility creates a larger burden. The pressure increases because no one can push it back onto you. They once believed you needed them. Now they are learning how much they depended on you. God is not allowing this weight to return because God enjoys their pain. The weight is returning because it never belonged to you. Some lessons cannot begin until rescue ends. Some people will never mature while someone else continues paying the price for their decisions. You may feel tempted to step in when you see them struggling. Remember what happened every time you rescued them. Their relief became temporary. Your exhaustion became permanent. They thanked you briefly and soon created another demand. This time, let the burden remain where it belongs. You carried it long enough. You lost rest, time, and peace while they remained comfortable. Now they must discover whether they are willing to change. You are not standing in their way. You are simply no longer standing underneath the weight they refuse to carry. Number 7. The family falls apart without the person they dismissed. You were the person who kept this family from falling apart. They rarely admitted it. Some may never have thanked you. Yet every time trouble appeared, they looked in your direction. You kept people connected when resentment divided them. You calmed arguments before they became permanent divisions. You remembered important dates. You checked on those who had been forgotten. When one family member stopped speaking to another, you stood between them and tried to restore peace. They called you weak because you cared. In reality, your care was the strength holding everyone together. Now that you have stepped away, the cracks can no longer be hidden. Small disagreements become serious conflicts. Family members who once united to pressure you begin turning against one another. Each person wants someone else to take responsibility. Nobody wants to make the sacrifice they demanded from you. Without you in the middle, their true relationships are being exposed. The person who complained the loudest about you now has no one to blame when things remain undone. The relative who insisted your help was nothing special is discovering how difficult it is to replace. Those who watched you struggle without offering assistance are now arguing over who must do what you once handled alone. They thought removing your voice would bring them peace. Instead, your silence has left them alone with one another. Old resentment begins rising. Accusations move through the family. One person claims another is not contributing enough. Someone complains about money. Another becomes angry over household responsibilities. The unity they displayed while taking from you disappears when they must give to one another. They were united by your usefulness, not by mutual love. That truth is difficult for them to face. They assumed the family was strong. It only appeared strong because you kept repairing every fracture. You covered their shortages. You absorbed their anger. You protected their public image. You made chaos look manageable. Once you stopped doing that work, the structure began to reveal its weakness. Now they are remembering moments they once ignored. They remember the meals you prepared. They remember the calls you answered. They remember how quickly you arrived when someone needed help. They remember the peace that entered a room when you chose not to respond with anger. Your absence is teaching them what your presence was worth. Some will regret how they treated you. Others will regret only losing what you provided. Time will reveal the difference. Genuine regret produces humility and change. Selfish regret produces another attempt to regain access. You do not need to return to find out which one they feel. God is allowing the family to see what happened when they dishonored the person who held everything together. The lesson is not hidden. They treated the most dependable person as if that person were disposable. Now the support they dismissed is gone. They may continue blaming one another. They may search for someone new to carry the family. But no substitute can recreate the years of patience, loyalty, and sacrifice you gave freely. The family is falling apart because the person they treated like a servant was actually the foundation beneath them. They recognized your labor only after it stopped. They understood your value only after they could no longer reach you. But their realization does not require your return. Some people must learn through absence what they refuse to honor through presence. You were the glue that held them together. God removed you before their brokenness could destroy you too. Number 8. You must not return when they finally beg for help. When the pressure becomes too heavy, they will remember you. The same people who dismissed your exhaustion will suddenly speak about how much the family needs you. They may call with apologies. They may mention old memories. They may claim everything will be different if you return. Listen carefully. Need is not always repentance. Some will miss your heart. Others will miss your labor, money, and ability to solve problems. Their words may sound gentle because the old demands no longer work. But a softer voice does not prove that a person has changed. You have seen this pattern before. They hurt you. You stepped away. They became uncomfortable. Then they offered enough kindness to bring you back. Once their comfort returned, the disrespect began again. This time, the door must remain closed. You can forgive without restoring access. You can care without becoming responsible. You can pray for your family without returning to the position that nearly destroyed you. Forgiveness releases bitterness. It does not erase wisdom. Do not let their suffering awaken the guilt they once used to control you. They are not struggling because you abandoned them. They are struggling because they must finally carry the responsibilities they placed on you. God did not remove you so they could summon you back during the next crisis. God removed you to protect your peace and restore your life. Your home can become quiet again. Your money can begin building your future. Your body can rest. Your mind can breathe without waiting for another demand. These are not selfish desires. They are parts of the life God never intended your family to consume. Let them learn without using you as their escape. Let them experience the cost of what they refuse to change. Their rock bottom may become the place where accountability finally begins. You did not leave to watch them suffer. You left because remaining required you to keep suffering for them. Now walk forward without revenge. Carry no hatred. Keep the wisdom. Protect the boundaries. The family that treated you like a slave no longer controls your future.